Hey guys, happy full moon in Aquarius, our second one this year. I am back with another video to talk about the Aquarian archetype and how we can use it for going within, doing that inner work, looking at our shadows, and building relationship with ourselves. Before we get started, I'm a little all over the place, so if you would like to join me, we'll just take a deep breath together before we begin. So if you can or you would like, please close your eyes. And we'll take an inhale in through our nose. Pause at the top and release through our mouths. Taking a moment to come back to our bodies, come back to the present. Pulling in all the energy we may have sent out, worrying or thinking or focusing or being excited about things in the outside world. Let's just take a moment to pull it back in. We can pull it into our bodies through our breath, in through our nose, all the way down to the pit of our stomachs. And just take a moment to feel into what's here now. What are we feeling? And whatever it is okay. If we're feeling excitement, joy, happiness, that's okay. If we feel overwhelmed, overworked, maybe worried, maybe frustrated, it's all okay. Just sit here for a moment. Feel into what is here now, and just allow. We'll take one more breath together, breathing into these feelings, in through our nose. Pause for a moment, and release through our mouths. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. So like I was saying, this is the second full moon in Aquarius that we'll have this year. Starting at the winter solstice with the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the early degrees of Aquarius, we now have these two full moons in Aquarius. So the first one, late in July, that occurred right around the same degree that the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn did late last year. The second full moon is occurring at the end of Aquarius. So in a way, we're sort of wrapping up the whole archetype of the sign, the whole energy of it, and what we want to use it for to integrate into our being so that we can enter this next phase of life, this next phase of maybe the world. Maybe as we enter the age of Aquarius, who knows. But when we talk about this Aquarian archetype for going within, for doing the inner work, we can utilize the essence of the archetype, which is the architect. So I like to think of Aquarius as the energy, sometimes the people who are able to see the larger picture, who see the structures and the workings of things, how things are programmed, how things are designed, the systems that we live and function within, and are able to understand those and not only break them down if they want, but build new ones too. So they're the architects of our society, of our culture. When you think about the image or the symbol of Aquarius, it's the water bearer. So it's the woman who's holding the vessel of water. Water is our life nutrients, our life nurturance, our emotions, our intuition, the vitality within us. Not in the fiery, passionate sense of fire like we talked about with Leo, but in the deep, abundant, and flowing kind of way in which we live being 70% water. And Aquarius is the woman holding this vessel. So we talk about this archetype not in terms of water, but in terms of air. Aquarius being an air sign, being able to sort of see the larger picture, see the larger perspective, understand things in a logical and rational kind of way, in almost a sort of detached way, right? She's not the water, she's holding it. And in this way, she can control it. She can create with it. She can use it as she will. So when we talk about this architect energy within ourselves and using it to do that inner work, what this archetype brings is the ability to see the structures, the systems, the patterns within ourselves, and often within our minds, right? The stories that we tell ourselves that influence the rest of our being. And the archetype teaches us that we have the power to write those own stories for ourselves, to see the ones that we might be telling ourselves, the ones that might be habituated, that we might be stuck in, and rewrite them into something that is more holistic, is more grounded, is more nurturing, is more empowering moving forward. As we embrace this archetype, the shadow sides of it, I feel, can kind of fall two ways. We can either, instead of identifying with the architect of our own lives, we can begin to identify with the building, with the structure that is being created by the architect. So instead of being the one who can create and tell our own stories, break down old ones, develop new ones, we start to identify with the stories themselves. Thinking that we are our stories, thinking that we are these patterns of thought and behavior rather than the one who can write them. The other side of the shadows of this archetype is the demolitionist, the one who wants to simply destroy, otherwise spoken of as the rebel without a cause, as this archetype is often known as. It can manifest as this desire to simply break down everything, to rebel against societal pressures, societal structures, paradigms, systems that we've built that feel constrictive. But this demolitionist is often without a true purpose other than simply to break things down. So someone who destroys without any plans to rebuild. And in this way, we, in some aspects, ignore our inner strength, our inner power to create whatever we'd like, to be free from these structures within our own that we've created, rather than breaking down everything in order to experience freedom, or a sense of freedom, I should say. So going back to the idea of the ego and the sense of self that we talked about with the Leo new moon, as this full moon is reflecting the light of Leo, we want to move away from being simply the demolitionist who wants to break everything down, and understand that there is an importance and there is a place in having these stories, especially the ones that we create, especially the ones that come from the authentic and genuine self, the ones that come from our purest joy and creative force within us. And we can be that architect who shifts those stories, who changes them, who rebuilds, so that we can live a purposeful life, that we can tap into our creative source from not only a genuine and authentic place, but also a place of higher perspective and spiritual alignment, if that's something that we're drawn to, or simply from a place of greater understanding, of greater knowing within ourselves. So again, going back to this water bearer image, how can we move from being the vessel, being the emotions, being the building, move from being the water to the one who holds it? Here we can ask, how do we want to be held? How do we want to hold our emotions, our intuition, our life nurturance? How do we want to hold and flow with and work with and channel our emotions and sense of being into our own lives? So this archetype is incredibly important because when we are stuck in habitual thought patterns, it manifests physically within the body, within the pathways within our brains, our hormonal system. And when we shift these stories, we can also physically shift our bodies. We can come into higher alignment with the more limitless and empowering stories that we want to tell ourselves, these new designs of the architect. And with this being the full moon, we want to think about first what stories we want to release, what energies we want to move away from, and truly and deeply let go of what doesn't serve us. Being really honest about that and choosing to surrender. With the beginning of fall, we're moving into harvest season, so likely there's abundance around us, either physically or with family, with friends, experiencing connection and celebration of what we love and cherish in this life. At the same time, we're also on the precipice of transformation, of letting go of the old and working towards that new, stepping into the new. I feel this in my own life. And before we can take that first step into the new, we have to let go of what doesn't serve us. In this way, the architect doesn't simply destroy the old and bring in the brand new, start from scratch. What we can do is, as we break down the old, we can take the pieces that worked for us and use it as the building blocks that we work from to bring in the new. In this way, we honor the parts of ourselves that came before, and we can use it to fuel the new life that we want to bring in and manifest for ourselves. Thanks again for joining me for this moon talk. Thanks for breathing with me and coming back into our bodies to start. I hope you have some time to sit with this energy, look at the stories that we tell ourselves, and begin the process of transforming, of taking those steps into the new. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you in a couple weeks.